YouTube, welcome back. All right, it's time to spill the beans with you guys. Tell you exactly what's going on. The rate change is right in front of you right now. Okay. We've identified pretty much the date and time as to exactly when the rate's going to change. That will not be shared within this video. If you want to know that level of data, you can join us on Patreon, and you'll gladly share all that with you on Patreon. Okay, that's not going to be shared here. All we're going to give you here is facts, showing you the RV is right in front of you, and bring you and show you the real facts that nobody else was capable of doing. Okay, we've got the real facts, unlike anybody else. All right, now let's cover all the main key points in this, and then we'll get into the material. You got to understand the key points to understand the material. Okay, guys, the government's done and formed, and yes, you're waiting on that government, but it is done, formed, and complete. They just can't show it to you, and I'm going to explain why, and I will prove to you the government's done, formed, and complete, and that it's being hidden from you. Okay, while everybody else kept telling you that Iraq's having political challenges. Now, let's get into the key points, and then get into the material. Now, the rate change date in this is a nucleus, guys. Okay, everything happening in Iraq right now is happening around the rate change date. It is the nucleus in this. For example, the formation of the government is revolving around the rate change date. That's why they just keep kicking the political can, and all the other gurus out there seem to think Iraq's having political differences. They're not. They don't have political differences. The government's done and formed. Okay, but it's the formation of the government and everything else happening in Iraq is the can's being kicked, so it's synchronized and time frame wise aligns with the scheduled rate change date. Now, these are the reasons why you have not seen the rate change for 17 years for this entire time. Okay, this article goes back to October of 2014. The initiative to revalue and delete the zeros from the Iraq dinar is ready for implementation given the political insecurity. So because of their political corruption and political instability, the central bank said, nope, we're not going to revalue. You need to remove your corruption and achieve political stability, then we'll delete the zeros and revalue your currency. Okay, second article, this was from Father's Day of 2021. 2 conditions for deleting the zeros. Okay, the orange middle highlight, it says the 2 conditions, the orange is the main one, it says, and the second is appropriate stability in the political life. So again, the central bank's telling you until they achieve appropriate political stability, sorry, not going to revalue, going to kick the can. Now, this was from July 3rd of this year. Another article, the central bank straight up says, if there are to be any changes made to the exchange rate, they have to correct the political situation in the country, remove corruption, achieve political stability. Now, this was from October 4th, right here in the very middle, October 4th of 2021, by the president, Barham Saleh. Big changes will happen after the elections. Okay, more confirmation. Now, here's what you guys, now I want to share something on this with you. Again, they rigged the elections. How did they rig them? All they needed to do was remove the corruption. Where was the corruption at? It was within their parliament. So parliament had majority Iranian Shiite officials. They needed to dissolve it. So what did they do? They dissolved their parliament, guys. They've never done this step before. They dissolved their parliament 3 days before the elections on October 7th of last year. They got rid of the entire parliament. They voted in a brand new parliament. That's all they needed to do to form the government. So they rigged the elections. They had to rig the elections. I'll explain in 1 second how they rigged it. They had to rig the elections so they could know exactly when the government would be done, formed, and complete, allowing them to hard schedule a rate change date. So how did they rig the elections? Well, what they're going to do, guys, is what they've talked about doing the longest, is reinstating the 3 presidencies. The presidency, the Speaker of Parliament, the president of the country, the prime minister. Those are your three presidencies. Since last year, that's the number one thing they've talked about doing the most, was reinstating the three presidencies, and mark my words, you're going to see that happen. They've already reinstated one of three. Halbusi, Speaker of Parliament, he's already been reinstated. They've only got two more to go, reinstate Barham Saleh for president and Kademi for prime minister. Okay? Now, as you guys see, here's proof that the government is now done, formed, and complete. The Federal Supreme Court. The Federal Supreme Court set criteria and guidelines, constitutional rules down. They said that a temporary caretaker government cannot pass, present, and approve laws, and they can only do at the end there handle daily affairs. So in other words, Kademi can't be traveling to Saudi Arabia to meet with Joe Biden. He can't be going to Saudi Arabia to meet with their officials. He can't be traveling to Iran to meet with their officials. Those are not daily affairs. Those are head of state tasks. Okay? Now, so you have Kademi performing head of state tasks, and again, read the green right here, right there, has no power in sending laws. Well, right here in the middle, they approved this Zionist law back around May. And then in June, they approved the Food and Security Law. They've approved two laws. But yet, according to the Federal Supreme Court, they cannot do that. And then, regarding the Food and Security Law, right here, the Federal Supreme Court said, sorry, you can't do it. But yet they did, and the federal court hasn't done a damn thing about it. Guys, the government is done, formed, and complete, proven to you right here. Okay? They have to hide the formation of the government from you because it leads you to a classified event called the reinstatement. That's why it's being hidden from you, and they will not show it to you until the last second. Now, here's what I want you to look at right now. The only news they have coming out right now about the formation of the government is they're only talking about the prime minister at this time. What they're telling you is they've got everything resolved with the president. They have to hide his parliament session date from you, and they are. Notice how they will not give you the parliament session date on the president, but yet they're not talking about him. Okay, the only person they're talking about right now is the prime minister. They have to hide all these dates from you, which is what they're doing. They're hiding dates from you about the formation of the government. But I'm showing you they're pretty much done with the step of the president other than his session of parliament. They need to bring you that date in the news. All they're talking about at this time is the prime minister. Okay, now, one of the things I told you was they had to rig the elections, and what they've talked about clear since last year was reinstating the three presidencies, which, mark my words, that's exactly what you're going to see happen. The Tripartite Alliance, this article was from June 11th of this year. The Tripartite Alliance wants the Kademi government to remain because it is the trio government that implements what it wants in terms of decision and appointments. Noting the Prime Minister wants Mustafa Kademi for a second term, so this is what they've told you they're going to do for the longest time, and mark my words, it's exactly what they had to do to rig the elections so they would know exactly when they could complete and form the government to hard schedule a rate change date. That's why they dissolved Parliament 3 days before the elections on October 7th of last year, so they could rig the elections, allowing them to hard schedule a rate change date. Now, this is what we're talking about. A leader in the framework of the prime ministerial candidate has been decided at the beginning of next week. This article was from yesterday, Friday the 22nd. Okay. So right now, again, they're not even talking about the president. All they're talking about is the prime minister, and they're telling you they're going to bring you a prime minister, okay, this coming next week at some point in time, and also vote on the president. Now, this was from today. This article is from today. This is the most current status on the formation of the government. A deputy seeks the date for the election of the president of the republic and the government. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. They're bundling the election of the president and the prime minister together. They're bundling them together. They only need about a week. to complete both of these steps. 1 week. Okay, why 1 week? So they can revalue immediately after they do them. Okay, that's why. That's why they only need a week, and that's why they bundled these two together. They'll get this entire step done in 1 week, so they can revalue immediately after they do these guys. But remember, I'm not going to give you the rate change date and time. We've got that identified on Patreon. If you want that, join us and we'll gladly share that with you. Okay, let's look at the article. Deputy sets the date for the election of the presidents of the republic and the government. The procedures for forming the government are going correctly, indicating that the session for electing the president of the republic and assigning the prime minister will be this week. Okay? That's the most current, latest information on the formation of the government. Now, I want to share something with you here. Okay? The formation of the government and the rate change, those two steps are married together. They're going to RV immediately after they form the government. And again, I'm not giving you any dates. But then they need about, right here it tells you, this is a little bit of an older article from June 23rd. It tells you they're going to implement the reforms, the oil and gas. So the oil and gas was nothing more than a reform step. They're going to implement the reforms roughly 2 to 3 months after they form the government. Why is there a separation of time or a delay between the oil and gas law, the reforms, and the formation of the government? It's because they need 2 to 3 months to fully approve the budget, because the budget approval period is waiting on the rate to become public. They need a new public rate to approve the budget. Once the budget's approved, 2 to 3 months, then they can implement the reforms. And here's another thing that no one in Dinarland has caught into. When a rate change is linked to a budget period, countries can only have one of two budgets, beginning of the year or middle of the year. Iraq is bringing forward a mid-year supplementary budget, guys. That's all this is. This is a mid-year supplementary budget. The middle of their year is their 7th month of October. So basically, they're telling you they want August. The 2 to 3 month delay is they want August and September to be able to approve the budget so they can implement the reforms in their 7th month of October. That's all this is. This is just nothing more than a mid-year supplementary budget and a mid-year rate change. Okay, again, I'm not telling you when the rate's changing, though. If you want that, join me on Patreon and I will gladly hook you up. We've identified all that. The opportunity is ripe to address the problems between Erbil and Baghdad, including the issue of oil and gas. And again, this article was from today. Recently, Kurdistan traveled and went to Baghdad to discuss the oil and gas law. Why? Because prior to, it was May or June, the federal court, clear up until May or June, I think it was maybe May, Kurdistan was implementing the oil and gas law. Okay? The power and control of the oil and gas law is going to transition to being under the power and control of the federal government under the reforms. And because they're about to implement the reforms, the federal court stepped in and told Kurdistan to stop, cease and desist, and end it, because it's going to transition and become active under the reforms, under the power and control of the federal government, no longer under the province of Kurdistan. Okay? And that's what this is. So recently, like today, yesterday, whatever, Barzani went to Kurdistan, or Barzani went to Baghdad to meet with the federal government, and he met with Kademi. It says, now I want you to look at something here. It says they've had 17 years of differences and challenges, indicating that there is a work program for a constitutional solution. The constitutional solution, guys, in that top highlight is the reforms. Okay, constitutional solution to the problems that persisted for 17 years, especially the issues that unite and divide the two sides. What unites is the reforms. Because we already saw an article maybe about 3-4 weeks ago that said Kurdistan and Baghdad will operate under an e-governance. That means they're merging under a common platform. Okay? They're going to work on and operate under an e-governance. They're merging. Okay? They're merging, they're becoming one, and the power or the control of the oil and gas law will go under the federal government through the process of the reforms. This is all about the reforms being implemented. The visit aims to focus the constitutional solution to the outstanding problems between Kurdistan and the federal government. But notice how they said issues that unite. Now, this is just a similar article as the previous. Okay, it's got some pictures in it. We'll show you that in a second. Masroor Barzani meets Kademi in Baghdad. Barzani's visit, according to a statement issued by the media of the federal government, aims to focus the constitutional solution to the outstanding problems between Kurdistan region and federal government, foremost of which is the oil and gas law. We have a constitutional work program. Yes, it's called the Reforms, to solve our ongoing problems for 17 years. They're telling you they're implementing the reforms in the near future. Middle of the year is when they're implementing the reforms, October, 7th month. First of most which is the oil and gas law again, but that is a reform step. And they've told you the oil and gas law will get implemented 2 to 3 months after they form that government. So they're telling you they can implement the reforms, oil and gas law, middle of the year, 7th month of October. Okay, here's some pictures from that meeting when they met. I'll let it scroll slowly so you can check it out. All right, I brought some comedy into this. I laugh because some people have to talk all out of all sides of their mouth so they can't be wrong. I saw where within about the last week or two, Mr. 26, I call him Pendejo 26, but Pendejo 26 had posted that this is a reinstatement. Now, reinstatement means put it back to where it was. So if you're claiming it's a reinstatement and you're claiming they're going to put it back to was, why are you saying it's going to get put back to 1200 unless you just magically have to talk out of both sides of your mouth so you can't be wrong? Guys, at the end of the day, Iraq cannot go international if the rate remains below zero, but none of the other gurus understand that, okay? It is a reinstatement. That means put it back to where it was in the 3+ range, okay? And Iraq has to put their rate back that's comparable to the region. None of the other Middle Eastern countries have a rate below zero. They're all like the lowest. Some of the lowest rates in the Middle East are maybe down around where Saudi Arabia is, around a quarter. Okay, that's like the low side. But again, Iraq cannot go international below zero. So anyway, if you want some good comedy to laugh at, this is a man that has to talk out of all sides of his mouth so he can't be wrong. Calls it a reinstatement, but tells you even if it dropped to zero. Sorry, Mr. 26, they can't go international below zero. So, yeah, we already know you're clueless as all hell. Anyway, there's some good, funny comedy for you guys. You guys are the best. The RV's in front of you. I'm not telling you when it's going to happen. I'm not giving you the date. I'm not giving you the time. If you want that, join me on Patreon. Best of luck to all you guys. And God bless you. Take care.